Yeah, they should know that you're not a organized, you're a sex trafficker.
I'm a sex trafficker, not an organized criminal. And we're live. It is Wednesday, January 14th, the year of our Lord 2026. And it is 8 o'clock a.m. And folks, it was a good night in Washington. I want to tell you what happened and the odd results uh, of algorithmic judgment of Benjamin Wittes that followed from this. Um, so on last night, before I went to bed, I posted a dog shirt daily in which I announced what Nastia, who may be joining us later or may not, had already announced, which was that she and I were relaunching our battery fundraiser, this time not for Nastia, but for anybody else we can help, particularly those on the right bank in Kyiv who have kids, particularly those who we know about who may need batteries. And I went to sleep aware that we had already raised $3,000 in the first couple hours of this thing being awake. And I woke alive, and I woke up this morning to find that there were $16,000 in my between my PayPal and Venmo accounts. And I was completely shocked by this, and really grateful to all of you who have been contributing. If you are joining on either Substack, and I am intentionally streaming to both Substack and YouTube today because although the stuff with the chat annoys me, and but I want to reach as many people as I can today, and and so uh, I I kind of knew that people were excited about this and really wanted to help. And so I have I woke up this morning and there were $16,000 in my various bank accounts. If you are new and joining us on any platform, the reason for this is because of a post that I did last night on Dog Shirt Daily, which is the flagship umbrella publication of which Dog Shirt TV is a part that posted information about the situation, the energy situation, the heating situation, and the electricity situation in Kyiv. And it informed people that I was going to buy as many large batteries as possible in order to help as many people as I could, and invited people to join me in non-tax deductible, non-501c3 fashion of, sending money to my accounts, because this is just a personal project that Nastia and I are undertaking. I woke up this morning and there were $16,000 in my various Venmo, PayPal accounts. And I was absolutely stunned by that. And I want to tell you, because it will amuse you all, what the algorithm decides about you when you suddenly try to transfer $16,000 to an Eastern European bank account. And the answer is it decides, of course, that you are a Russian organized criminal. And it starts blocking you real fast. So I have Nasi and I are working on getting the money to Kiev, which is a little bit of a challenge that I am working from my end, and it may require uh, some brute force techniques. It may also require that I deal with the actual Russian mob because they seem to know how to deal with this kind of situation. I'm joking about that, of course. Um, there's another problem.
You're obviously buying multiple Ukrainian women. I mean,
I
how
look,
would
I
you
buy
argue that?
Ukrainian, the whole algorithm's judgments about me are so disgusting. And um, uh, um, that these are um, uh, just additional elements. Nicholas asks a question that is I will answer, which is why Nastia's husband is not drafted, and the answer is he's not drafted because he enlisted the first day of the war and served for 3 years, and was decommissioned about a year ago when their baby was born, and is now working in the security sector. So there is nothing offensive about the question. But the question is that he served for a good long time and was decommissioned only relatively recently. Here is the second problem we have run into, which is that, and will explain why Nastia is not currently on the screen, and that is that the right-sized batteries are mostly sold out in Kyiv for obvious reasons, and we are trying to buy a lot of them. And so Nastia is currently scampering about Kyiv looking for batteries. So we have two significant logistical hurdles to clear. I am going to figure out as soon as the show is over how to. Hello, Nastia. Um,
Hello.
I am going to figure out how to get money in Nastia's pocket, and she is going to figure out where you can still buy uh, um, large batteries in Kyiv and figure out who needs them.
I'm
And we,
already done, almost done with both of those tasks.
all right. So your all's job is to share my post with everybody you've ever met, because and talk about it inappropriately at dinner parties, and keep informing people that we are doing this so that we can keep money coming in, and we will spend 100% of it. The overhead
Yes.
we are operating with, let me tell you exactly what the overhead is. It is zero, with one exception, which is transfer fees associated uh, with getting money overseas. That can run anywhere from $1 if you're willing to wait a few days, which we are not, to a few $100s if you do it on credit cards. Um, I am not fussed about overpaying for getting money to Kyiv right now. So that is the overhead of this operation. The amount that we are paying Holly and the cactuses is zero. The amount that we are paying me is zero. The amount that we are paying Nastia is zero. And so that's what we're trying to do. Uh, and and yes, the cactus fraud is the problem that we are trying to address, all of which is a long-winded way, but I hope, Kate, a not inappropriately long-winded way, because it was full of actual information that you guys need about this guerrilla operation. Um, uh, the sun is shining in Washington. That's actually a lie. It's gray and overcast. The birds are chirping. It is going to be a great fucking day. And when you wake up in the morning, finding that there is $16,000 in your Venmo account that you did not expect. That is a harbinger of the fact that it is going to be a great fucking day. And it is Dog Shirt TV that you're watching, and it is a forking revolution in morning television. And let me tell you about one of the revolutionary features. One of the revolutionary features of this show, and sometimes I use revolutionary in a fashion that you might say is a little bit hyperbolic because it's synonymous with eccentric. But in this case, it is actually revolutionary, is that we just raised $16,000 to buy batteries for people who actually need them on the right bank of the
Left.
left bank, I'm sorry,
And
of
the
the
European.
river in Kyiv.
But
And
it's, yeah. Anyway.
and another one of the revolutionary features is that though the show is called Dog Shirt Daily, occasionally I put on a red, white, and blue Vishivanka purchased for me by none other than Anastasiia Lapatina in
Yours truly.
Kyiv. Yes, yours Ukrainian truly, because
Yes.
this is an example of the fact that even when our government sucks and America will step up for Ukrainians, all of which is a long-winded way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to do cool things, sometimes much cooler than we expected. Nastya, tell us about the buying batteries situation in Kyiv.
That's actually that I have more. My day has been very eventful, actually, even more eventful than that. It started with me waking up and finding that A, my battery is charged, which is great, which means that there was electricity during the night, and B, we still had no water. So
And we
I
don't know why you have no water, right?
I mean,
Or
something to do with electricity necessary to do pumping or whatever.
I see.
I wrote the energy piece, but there is only so much I really understood in how this infrastructure works, Ben. You know this. But yeah, I mean, it's because of electricity. Like, there's a shortage of electricity. So I have no water at all, um, which is not ideal. And then I needed to go to see a doctor. And as I was walking to see a doctor, there was several drones flying over me and a bunch of machine gun fire shooting down those drones. And I proceeded to film that experience, sharing that in my Substack community chat with folks. But it was
If you
pretty scary.
send me the
I will send you the
image,
video.
if you send me the video, I will play it on the show.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah.
It's really, it's like, it was really bad. It's also super cloudy, which meant that you can't actually spot the drone, which makes it worse because you can't even kind of see it coming
So
towards you.
so you
You
do
just
it by
hear it.
you hear
You
it.
you just hear it, and it's like really not great. I just sent you but it was like it was right there. It felt like it just went over me. Um, so that was that. I'm sending that to you now. Then I went to the doctor, and then I went to a salon to like get my hair done. I just
Your
washed my
hair looks
hair.
fabulous.
Well, yeah, because I just needed to get it cleaned. Like I wasn't doing anything with the hair. I just washed it and styled it. But the place that had the salon had water, but had no hot water because there was no electricity to power the boiler. So they used, what do you call it? I don't know what you call this, but they anyway mixed a bunch of cold water with a bunch of hot water that they heated in kettles, mixed that, and then used little like mugs to pour it over my head. And that's how this fancy salon was washing my hair. It was just ridiculous. Like this whole day, it's just ridiculous. Anyway,
In
you'll just have to believe me that it was scary.
Yeah, it was scary. Um,
Mm. Okay, so now to the question of batteries. Um, it's kind of really hard to get them now because uh, almost all of them are sold out. Uh, and so it's a little bit of a headache. And the only ones that are still up to buy are on the more. Oh, okay. So you are playing it. Cool.
Can you hear it?
Yeah. So that was right over me, and I couldn't even see it.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Right? Yeah. Not great. So that's that. But so the ones that are left to purchase the batteries, they're on the more expensive side, which is okay because I think we would have gone with those models anyway, because the issue we're trying to address right now is heating. And to be able to run the electric, like oil-filled radiators, you need the more expensive models. Because if you buy less expensive ones, they can only run the radiator for like an hour or two, which doesn't really help anyone. So I think I found the official shop of the brand that makes these that has some in stock. They cost 3,500 per piece.
Whoops. Did we just, I
So
think we just,
that's also great.
oh, wait, we just lost your audio for just a second. You're back.
Wait, I need to be back on my connect. Okay, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep. You're
Okay,
good.
great. There's an air raid in Kyiv right now because there are more drones. Anyway, so yeah, if we want to buy 5 of those batteries, we're gonna need 17. No. What am I saying? What am I trying to say, Ben?
Yeah, you said
17,500.
17,500.
Okay,
We've got it. And I'm going to figure out how to get it to you as
Yeah.
soon as we are off
Yes.
the.
Yes.
The problem is that, as I was saying before you came on, all the banks now think I'm a Russian organized crime guy because I'm trying to wire money to Eastern Europe. And who
Well,
does that? Like
Ben,
on an instant basis.
Maybe you can send them a screenshot of your official sanctions by Moscow. I don't know.
Ben, we could, like, as I've told you before, I think we could just try having you just pay on the website directly without
Yeah,
getting
I
the money
think
to
that's
me.
probably the best way to do it because then the amounts are smaller, but you're still going to have the why is Wittes sending large
Almost a
amounts
million
of money.
hryvnias to
Yeah,
Ukraine.
million hryvnia to some random battery company.
It's
And I
actually
mean,
not
there's
random. It's like an official big world famous if you live in war zones company, so it will look
oh, I
legit.
know, but there's still like why is Wittes buying battery? Like, there's only a
Yeah,
few explanations for this,
for that.
and
Yeah.
most of them involve crime. Um, uh, but this one doesn't. Anyway,
Yeah. So that's
Nastia
the
is
situation.
doing her job. I'm going to do my job and get this money to her or in the hands of the relevant company. And your job, if you're listening to this, is to contribute if you haven't already done so, and uh, and um, uh, uh, and John Hawkinson, ever issue spotting, is raising the issue of the structuring statutes. And the structuring statutes, which are a very important thing and which I happen to know very well, do not cover these situations. These are called bank structuring laws, and they are designed. And the reason, John, that they do not apply to this situation is that I am not trying to prevent the reporting of $10,000 transactions, overseas wire transactions. In fact, I encourage that they be reported to FinCEN as by all banks. In fact, I'm announcing in public that I'm doing this because I want people to contribute. And so there are things that are, I think the bigger issue is know your customer laws. People don't, banks are suspicious when large amounts of money change hands and they need to know who's doing what. And that's totally legit. And I'm in a hurry. And so I'm trying to get around that, but the solution may very well be to, as Nastia says, for me just to pay the company directly, or to go to Western Union in person with my passport and my bank account information and say, this is really me, God damn it, and I need this done. It will get done this morning one way or another. All right, Nastia, you're a great American, though you are a Ukrainian and a Canadian non-citizen.
I'm so not a Canadian.
And yet,
I-
you you were a Canadian school child.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And I liked importance, but that's that.
Holly, what is on your
Ah,
mind this
actually, guys,
morning?
I'm gonna run and go
Yep.
to the shop
I
and
love you,
figure stuff out.
Nastia.
Yeah, and by the way, tell them I can do a bank transfer easily, but it takes a few days, and or I can scramble to figure out how to get it done today. But
Will,
just
will,
see,
will you be available to chat to me right after this ends?
yes,
Okay.
I am free as needed.
Okay, cool. We'll figure it out. Bye, guys.
Bye. Love you. Mwah.
Bye.
Holly, what's on your mind this morning?
Well, people have been complimenting my hat, which of course is a tribute to Ukraine. This was made by my friend Tammy's mother, who does a lot of crochet, and it's quite lovely. And it's fitting for today, not only because of what Nastia and the other residents of Kyiv have been going through, and the effort to get them batteries, but also because my hair looks like I am a resident of Kyiv without water, and I needed to hide my hair.
Not just your hair, your torso, because you're wearing a fleece. You're dressed all warmly as though you are
A resident of Kyiv.
bundled up
Yeah.
in.
Well, this is just the easiest thing to go over my leopard print pajamas. So
That
anyway,
is awesome.
I
See,
I'm not prepared today. Yes.
I make a point of dressing up every day for this show, and Holly rolls out of bed
I
and
roll out
wears
of
her
bed.
leopard print pajamas, and I think that is great. You know, it's a reflection of the refusal to comply with gender norms that we both grew up with and we don't need. And so, you know, I gussy myself up in a new dog shirt every day, or in this case, a new Vishibanka every day.
You gussy yourself up.
I do. I apply makeup to my. I don't really. And Holly is just like, Holly has done the show from bed, which I think is the ultimate fuck you to expectations, and I love it. I am so here from it.
That's definitely the era I'm living in. So speaking of my friend Tammy, she also sent me a Christmas ornament, but it is going to be out all year long. It's going to be on my shelf. This is the drunk raccoon. You see
All
it,
right.
everyone?
That
anyway,
is
she bought a tiny raccoon. She bought a tiny bottle of tequila. She glued the raccoon to the tequila
I think
bottle.
we need for today's good morning image or good evening image, we need a photograph of that. Maybe I'm just gonna grab a screenshot. Uh, let's see.
Anyway, this raccoon is of course the patron
Don't put
saint
it down.
of 2025, possibly 2026, although I feel like we would need to
We got it.
murder the raccoon after it's already passed out drunk or something.
No, the patron saint of 2026 is when the raccoon is elected to Congress
Oh,
in the blue wave,
oh,
and
oh.
it's going to be
Well, I think the
representative
Democrats
drunk
usually,
raccoon.
most of the Democrats candidates are thankfully better than drunk raccoons. But it could be a Republican somewhere.
Hey, I am totally pro drunk raccoon 2026. It's a a a body that will not vote the wrong way.
Okay.
That's all I need. Does it
Anyway,
does it
props
support
to
Trump?
Tammy for this outstanding bit of creativity. And props to Tammy's mom for this outstanding bit of creativity, which is now in season again. I have a summer one up there. That's my summer hat. I've attached a flag to it in case it is not it's too subtle. But it's covered in sunflowers. Anyway, they keep me taken care of. So, in other news, last night I went down to there was a large protest. Some of the Greek chorus members were also there at Customs and Border Patrol headquarters in downtown Washington, and it was. I'm not good at numbers, but it was. I couldn't even see it
from your pictures.
It was for bigger than I could actually get. I would have needed to get up on something high to get a sense of how far it went, but the crowd went back as far as I could see. Um, and multiple senators were there, some representatives as well. It was a good event, and I just want to note that the crowd, which was a large crowd, which was not, a friendly crowd towards the Custom and Border Patrol, and we were right outside the door. There was no real perimeter. We were right up against the Customs and Border Patrol entrance. There were Customs and Border Patrol officers standing outside, and I just want to note that none of them were assaulted or beaten or tased. They had
much less shot.
Yeah, they had a few people, hurling insults at them, but generally they were not bothered at all. We did not break the windows of Custom and Border Patrol. We did not invade Custom and Border Patrol.
Was there any feces smeared on
There
anybody's
were no
desk?
feces smeared, as far as I know. It was a beautiful, peaceful event. At one point, the crowd sang "This Little Light of Mine" in honor of Renee Good, whose family describes her as sunshine. And yeah, they did not have masks on, actually, the ones just milling outside the Customs and Border Patrol. But hey, we're all a bunch of domestic terrorists. Most of us were over the age of 50, I would say. Although, a few more young people than I've seen lately. And yeah, it was a great event. There's nothing that lifts the spirits like a good protest. I highly recommend it if you are feeling despondent, or make you a sign. Oh, I had a great sign, if I do say so myself.
It was a great sign.
Which is now going to be kind of my mantra, actually. It says, I don't have it.
Wait, I will display it on the screen as soon as I can figure out how to do that without spilling more. Here, I have now figured out how to display pictures without presenting my entire correspondence.
Yeah.
Polly
So
Stein says, "I'm not mad at you. I just want you to uphold the Constitution."
And then it says on the
Okay,
side,
I'm also mad.
have to just be honest there. But that is both an homage to Renee Good, who, if you've seen the video, her last words were telling the officer, "Dude, I'm not mad at you," and with a smile and completely not hostile at all. And as upon reflection, I just think, needs to be my posture, because you can be consumed by the anger, and my posture, particularly towards my friends and family who are still supporting this administration. It's hard not to be consumed by anger. It's hard not to honestly start to hate people. And so this is my mantra. I'm not mad at you, but I do want you to uphold the Constitution. And that's kind of the bottom line. So we're inspired by Renee Good, and I will certainly be taking her words forward with me into my life. So,
Well, So somebody in the chat, I believe the estimable Doug, if memory of 5 minutes ago serves, noted to everybody that there is a Principles First meeting in Washington toward the end of February. I was just invited to speak at it, which I will be doing. And if people want to use it as an occasion to have a DSTV get together of some sort, I will be back from Kyiv at that point. I'm going to be in Ukraine for 2 weeks, starting on January 24th. This will have implications for the schedule, and I mean to keep uh, going as close to daily as I can, but there may be interruptions. I will be there for 2 full weeks, returning the 8th. But I will be here back in time for the Principles First Summit, and I am would be happy if people want to come into town for that, to have a dog shirt daily in-person get together on the sidelines of that, either in one form or another. A number of Principles First people are members of the Greek chorus, including Holly's and my good friend Melissa. And remember that last year, Enrique Tarrio and the Proud Boys crashed the Principles First Summit free on a few days earlier from as a result of the pardons. And so we will be I'm very happy to organize something on the sidelines of Principles First. Um, all right.
I will also be there, and I will be doing whatever Melissa tells me to do. So I I have volunteered in the past for the summit, and of course I've been involved in Principles First. I did a panel in November. And that's how I met Melissa, who is a great American, and I will be taking orders from her. I don't know what she's going to tell me to do this year.
All right. Let us shift gears and talk briefly about Iran, which is coming up in the Greek chorus, and I have a few things to say about it. The first is, and this may come as a surprise to some of our viewers, but this show actually has audience in Iran. Every time I stream to Substack, which I am doing right now, one of the active participants in the Substack chat I'm going to keep, out of caution about his safety, I am going to keep names out of it, to be honest, just as a precaution. But we have a regular person who joins on the Substack live stream from Tehran, and has had interesting things to say. One of the reasons I sometimes broadcast to other platforms, even at risk of undermining the business model of the site, which of course makes the live show the province of the paid subscribers, is because I know that we have some viewers in places that are repressive, places that, people don't necessarily have easy access to Riverside. And I do not have the Substack chat open right now, but and I assume, because the internet is not live in Iran right now, that our viewer or viewers in Tehran are not joining us right now. That said, if for any reason that's wrong and you are there, we are thinking of you. And uh, if there is anything we can do to be helpful, do not hesitate to send me a message on Signal. Use appropriate, of course, precautions with your data security. Uh, do not fool yourself in a Pete Hegseth-like fashion that OPSEC is good when it's not. But please feel free to get in touch and let us know, let the Greek chorus know how we can be helpful if we can. And if we cannot, which I don't really know how we could, but, you know, use your imagination. We are thinking of you in all the different ways that people think, pray, and concern themselves. Yeah, so the second thing is that, as Jeff points out in the chat today, we have a episode of the Lawfare podcast on this subject today that you're going to want to listen to. It is available on YouTube. It is available on our podcast feed. I am, as to Erica's point, which is absolutely correct. Let me address the relative absence of discussion. Number one, it reflects the fact that I know a lot more people in Kyiv who are much freer to talk than I know in Tehran. Which is not to say I don't know any in Tehran, but they are much less able to get on a live call because their government kills them. So the internet there is also down, and so it is a harder situation to address, as evidenced by the fact that when we talk to Ukrainians, we are dealing with live Ukrainians and when we talk about Iran, like right now, I'm doing it as an extemporaneous monologue and trying to avoid putting anybody at risk. Second issue, stay tuned. We will have a guest in the next couple days who is going to address the situation directly, and I actually thought that would happen today, but I woke up with a very important set of Kyiv updates. But the main explanation is that it's just a harder problem to cover live, and I am less well sourced in it. And so that is the full and complete explanation. And I will also say that what is going on in Tehran right now and all over Iran is incredibly moving, and also barbarous. So your point is very well taken, and I will endeavor to address it in the next certainly 48 hours with some serious discussion, some of which begins on the Lawfare podcast before we had this conversation. But your point is very well taken.
Yeah, obviously I'm not an Iran expert by any means, but I am somewhat of an expert on authoritarian regimes and protest movements, and I covered Sudan for a while in the fall of Bashir, and then into the current civil war. And unfortunately, you see, and you're seeing it here in America, the people with the guns kind of make the rules at the end of the day. And if a regime like the Iranian regime is willing, as they clearly are, to just mow down people, then they can they can hold on to power. It unfortunately, peaceful protests are important. They're necessary in terms of, certainly global action, if there's any of that left, and moral statement. And they definitely put pressure on the regime because the regime doesn't want to do this. Even an evil regime, it's a headache for them to have to kill people, a lot of people, out openly like this. So it's not that it's not important or valuable or noble, but at the end of the day, there's gonna have to something's gonna have to give on the military front. I think the military, will have to turn. That's what happened in Sudan. The military turned on the regime, and then took over themselves, and then of course they became problematic. And then they split, and two sides had guns, and then you got civil war. So, and then out of the Arab Spring, again, a lot of inspiring sites of the Arab Spring and how protest movements can move the needle. But unfortunately, that did not always, or I don't know if I don't know, I'm not an expert on the Middle East, but very little actual democracy, came out of that. So I don't mean to be discouraging, but I don't, I these people are so brave and it's so noble, but I'm afraid that they're not going to be rewarded.
So I have a certain share your pessimism in some ways. The Iranian regime is a disaster in all kinds of governance fashions, but it has refined repression in a fashion that relatively few regimes are capable of doing, dialing it up, dialing it back. And they have been very effective at killing and jailing and torturing their way to staying in power in the face of democratic and liberalization movements that go back at least until Khatami in 2000. And that said, I also think there are reasons to be optimistic, and they may not be short-term reasons, but one of them is that the Iranian people, in very large numbers, supports liberalization, and there is really strong data on that over a long period of time. The second is that the country really rejects clerical rule. And the third, which I think is important in the distinction between Iran and the Arab Spring, is that unlike any Arab country except Egypt, which has other issues, Iran is a real nation state, and has been for
Strong national identity for sure that goes back a long, long ways.
it goes back. I mean, it's a really interesting question, actually, how far it goes back. But people people talk about people say glibly, the Iranians aren't Arabs, they're Iranian, right? Which is
Persian,
true.
Persian is what I've been told by.
Well, and Persian is an Indo-European language. It's it really is a very different culture that people get this very wrong because they use because it's an Islamic society that uses the Arabic script, right? And but it's a very different culture. And one of the cultural features of Iranian life and Persian life is that it is a nation state in the way that the Arab world has struggled with, for really since the fall of even before the fall of the Ottoman Empire, right? There's this question in the Arab world: is this one people? Is this 100 different peoples? Is this you know, is it really the same language in Morocco as in Iraq? Answer: absolutely not. What does it mean to be an Arab? There is no similar, politically, that is. There's no similar question in Iran in the same way that just there's no question in France, right? That's not to say there are no questions about the nature of French nationhood or Iranian nationhood, but it doesn't have this trans-border. And I think, democracy in that gives you the opportunity to have national institutions that are strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a much more challenging idea in particularly in Arab countries that are not Egypt.
Certainly African countries that are so artificially constructed and divided. No, that's a really good point. I think Iran and Venezuela as well is another example where Venezuela once was a functioning state and
not even very long ago.
Yeah, not even very long ago. And in both cases, not only is there that sort of institutional capacity and a sense of nationhood and a sense of institutional norms and things like that, but also the the capacity, the education levels, and the expertise of the not only people still there, but certainly the diaspora is really impressive.
It has a really strong diaspora.
Yeah,
and for those
there's so many really well-educated, expert Iranians here in the United States, and who, many of whom I think would be very motivated to go back and to try to help rebuild Iran. So it's a good point. It's just they need a chance,
Right.
They need a chance. And how do you get, what's really sad in like countries like Sudan is like they had a chance, but they didn't have any of those other things. Although Sudan, compared to many other African countries, did have a fairly well-educated class. But they had no real institutional basis other than the military. So, what the path Sudan was on was the military was required to get rid of Bashir. And I think that's the case. I don't know. I'm not a Iran expert, but something's going to have to give in the regime on a military standpoint to get rid of the regime, the military or some other, they're going to have to sort of turn. So the military is often required to get rid of a regime, but then they have to hand it over, quickly to a civilian democratic sort of process. And Sudan, I'm not defending the military, but the military's argument in that period where they were in transition supposedly was that the civilians just didn't have the capacity and they were so divided against themselves and they had no plan, and when they were given opportunity they weren't able to do anything, and there was a lot of truth to that. Sudan needed more time that the military unfortunately did not give them. So
yes, and there's a really important additional thing that Iran lacks, which is it has this incredible indigenous democracy movement that is driven by people below a certain age, and that has been unbelievably brave and has, not just in this episode, but in prior episodes, taken a huge number of casualties at the hands of the regime. I say that
casualties they're talking about now is astounding.
It is
horrific.
What it does not have is any kind of Mandela figure. It doesn't have leadership. which in some ways makes the on-the-ground leadership even more impressive. But there's no analog to the ANC. There is the former crown prince who fashions himself king of Iran, really king of LA, actually. There is the Mujahideen Khalq, the MEK, which is a cult based in Paris, and that attracts people like Rudy Giuliani and a lot of people who should know better, but is in fact has, as best as I can tell, no indigenous following at all. And there are any number of people over the years who have set themselves up, like sort of, to borrow an Iraqi example, the Ahmed Chalabi model, who are some combination of charlatans and sincere, and the result is that there's no address to go to except 100,000, maybe 5 million young Persian women on the street who don't, there's no centralized address when you want to talk to the Iranian opposition. And that's a very, that's a real problem if you imagine the fall of the regime, we all knew the answer to that question in South Africa, right? It was only a question of when first Picbota and then more plausibly F.W. de Klerk would recognize that reality. In Iran, you really do have the problem of, first, the regime is very, very willing to use whatever violence it needs to use in order to suppress things. But then you also have this problem of then who, and so there are real challenges, and they're not easy challenges. And the fact that people are out in the streets doing really, really brave things should encourage everybody, but you should not confuse that with the end of the regime, although someday it will be.
Yeah, someday it will be. We don't know what forever is, but these regimes obviously historically don't tend to last, although they've lasted for a really long time. So, I remember also another example, Zimbabwe, in 2017, once again, the military, there was some popular pressure, although Zimbabweans are not the mass protest type. But ultimately, the military was threatened by Grace Mugabe, the first lady, who is a real piece of work, let me tell you. But it took the military stepping in. And then they handed over power to another regime figure, and the regime is still in place. So that's a lesson on Venezuela too, by the way, and what it looks like it's going to happen. Like, regimes are not. It depends on the country, of course, but generally speaking, regimes, there's an infrastructure there, and it goes well beyond one person.
That's exactly right.
And it perpetuates beyond one person for sure. So if Trump or the U.S. government thinks that taking out Maduro is the end, they don't seem to care. Frankly, they seem fine to work with the regime. It's just their regime.
I will just say to everybody who is noting the lengths of regimes that this was, of course, the subject of Shelley's sonnet, Ozymandias, which concludes, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." I may have a few words of that off. But the point is, these things are really permanent until they're not. And eventually, the frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command that tell its sculptor well those passions red which yet survive, stamped upon these lifeless things, do end up buried in the sands of the desert. And it is a question of how long and how arrogant they are, but they all do end up in the same place. With that, I am going to close today by inaugurating a new feature, because I have this awesome new soundboard that lets me do that, which play music to you all. And so we are going to go out. This is a new feature called Fair Use, in which the last minute and a half I consider fair use of copyrighted material. And because we have been talking about with holly, which gives it an African flavor, we've been talking about Sudan, we've been talking about South Africa, and we are talking about international struggles of free peoples in Iran and in Kyiv. We're going to go out with Miriam Makeba singing Aluta Continua, and we're going to ask Holly, as we bring it up, to tell us a little bit about the slogan Aluta Continua. What is it? What does it mean? And what is the historical significance of it?
Well, you probably know better than me, actually. So, no, but isn't it? It's the struggle continues. Obviously,
yes, it is. The struggle continues in Portuguese.
In
it
Portuguese,
the slogan of Frelimo.
Frelimo, and again, another uninspiring cautionary tale. Mozambique, obviously gained independence from the Portuguese, but then immediately plunged into a brutal civil war for a number of years between Frelimo and Renamo. And Frelimo won that war and is still in power, is an autocratic regime. Renamo is still floating around as some sort of opposition entity. But there's a few other opposition parties. But in Mozambique, the struggle still continues for democracy. There were some brighter spots some years ago, but it seems like the Frelimo regime has backtracked on that. So Mozambique, the struggle continues.
Yeah, except people can't hear it apparently, which is annoying. And so I'm going to do this the crude way. I'm going to do this the crude way, which is to say, share it visually, and
the habit of dedicating it to the people
now
of
people should
Mozambique
be able to hear it. Is
and
that
to
right?
their vanguard party, Frelimo,
All
and
right.
to the beloved
So, Aluta Continua became a bit of a slogan for Southern African independence movement in general. I adopted it as an anti-Trump slogan a number of years ago, and I think if you listen to this song, she will, at some point, she goes through a list of countries that the struggle continues in. I think you can change the names of them and it works pretty well. Home of the brave, our nation will soon be. You'll be back tomorrow, and I'll fix this and make it work, and make it work properly. Tech problems are part of the show. I don't know who the co-hosts are going to be. I don't know who the guest is going to be, but we're going to be talking about Iran. And you'll be there, and I'll be there. It's going to be awesome.
hear you there at the end. So, are you still on?
I'm still here,
Oh,
and people will make do.